Hi, I'm Olga, and in this video, I'll walk you through how to set up your brand new Clockify workspace. We'll look at the many useful features including profile and workspace settings, permissions, roles, and many more. So, let's dive in. When you open Clockify, you land on the time tracker page, but we'll cover that later in this video. For a quick setup, you can use the top bar to collapse and expand the sidebar, switch between workspaces, access Clockify's Help Center, see notifications, and change profile settings. But all the magic starts at the left-hand sidebar. That's where you can see Clockify's features neatly divided into the Main section, Analyze section, and Manage section. You can drag and drop any card to where you see fit. First, let's start off with the profile settings. Here, you can upload a profile picture and edit your name so that other users can easily recognize you in the workspace. Here, you can set a password for your Clockify account if you created it using your Google login and wish to add an extra layer of security. Alternatively, if you have a password set already, you will be able to change it here. Next, you can change the language. Clockify is currently available in 8 languages. Grouping time entries will group multiple entries from the same activity for an easier overview, and expanding that activity will show you all individual tracked entries. If this option is turned off, you will see all entries in chronological order. When tracking time, you will have the option to link an entry to a project. Here you can make project selection easier when you have hundreds of projects by collapsing all projects, collapsing if too many projects for which you get to decide how many is too many, and you can also choose to not have the projects list collapse. With the task filter enabled, you can quickly find the right task in the project picker by using the task at project syntax. When disabled though, you will only be able to search for projects and clients in the drop-down when tracking time. The time settings allow you to pick the time zone you're working in, your preferred date and time format, which day your week starts, as well as what time your usually day starts. In the email preferences, you have control over which types of emails you wish to receive. Just check and uncheck to your preference. With our profile settings out of the way, it's time to see all the different ways we can customize our workspace. So without further ado, let's head over to the workspace settings here. First things first, we can add our company logo here, which will be visible on invoices created in Clockify. Next, you can change the workspace name. Since this isn't a personal workspace and we'll use it for operations in an agency, we'll rename it as the name of the agency. This is how you and members you add to your workspace will be able to identify where they are, especially if they have multiple workspaces. We'll skip some of these settings for now, but don't worry, we'll get back to them. So moving on down, we can choose how we organize time by. By default, time entries and expenses in Clockify are grouped by clients, projects, and finally tasks, and they follow that hierarchy as well. But this may not suit all our users, so you have the option to choose a different term or even input your own custom term. Here, you can choose in which format you wish to display time, either with or without seconds, or even in a decimal format. Now we have the option to choose the default working days for all new members. For example, in some countries, Fridays and Saturdays are considered non-working days, so you can check and uncheck days to match that. However, you can override working days for specific members on each member's profile, either individually or in bulk. It's time to set a workspace billable rate. When there's no specific value set for billable hours for users or projects, this will be the default value. If we move on further down, we can activate cost and profit analysis, which will allow you to set labor cost rates and see in reports what you charge clients versus what you pay your team. Once activated, a new setting will appear where you will be able to set the default cost rate. Just like the default billable rate, this rate will apply only if a more specific rate isn't defined. Let's go back to the billable rate. Below it, you can add the currency in which the billable and cost amount will be displayed in reports. The default currency is US dollars, but you can change it to any currency by clicking Edit, then Add Currency, and finally inputting the desired currency. There's one more way to customize how you view your precious data, and that's by choosing your preferred number and currency format for the whole workspace. At the bottom of the page, you can activate Audit Log, which will track who did what and when, and get a detailed log of all the system activities. We're not quite done with the workspace settings. We'll explore further features in the following chapters. Adding a team member is quick and easy. You just go to the team page and click on the Add Team Member button, then type in the email address of the person you wish to add. When you add a member, with this option checked, the system will send them an invitation email like this one. But since we're still setting things up, you can uncheck this option, and once you're ready to introduce your team members to your brand new workspace, just copy and send them their invite link. For each user, you can choose between 3 member roles. First, an admin can see and edit everything for all the other users. Second, the project manager can edit all projects they manage and see all time on those projects. Third, the team manager can see all track time of users they manage and approve their timesheets. A thing to keep in mind is that only the owner can remove the admin role. To make your life easier and avoid assigning people to projects one by one, you can assign each user to groups. There are 2 ways to create groups, either using the drop-down in the Group column where you type in the name and press Ctrl-Enter, or by heading to the Group tab here, typing in the text box and clicking Add. Now you can see your brand new group from where you can now assign users to. A great thing is that you can find your own system, whether each group will represent a team or a specific role like HR or content marketing, or better yet, you can assign a single user to several groups. Just like you edited your profile before, there are a few things you can edit for your team members by clicking on the 3 dots and choosing Edit Profile. You will see that a portion of the options is grayed out, and you will be able to edit settings once the user accepts. But what you can edit are their working days, daily work capacity, and any custom user field you activated. But what are those, you may ask? Let's head to Workspace Settings and click on the Custom Field tab here. In the second section, you're able to create any field you may need that you need to tie to your users. You can choose the type of information that should be inputted. For example, your employees might have an employee ID tied to them. Well, then just type in Employee ID under the name. The description is optional, but you can put in an explanation that appears when hovering over the field. And finally, the input type. Click Create and drag it to the active section. Now we're ready to use our new custom field. Let's head back to the team page and edit someone's profile. See, there it is. I'll add an ID number, and now each time entry this user makes will contain their unique ID number, which will be visible when you export a report. Since we already activated cost and profit analysis in Workspace Settings, if your employees have different cost rates, you can add them in this column. Same thing goes for billable rates, but we need to activate them first in Workspace Settings, in the Permissions tab. Once activated, you can set your team members' billable rates in the Assign column. Now we've already mentioned user roles. However, everyone who's not an admin or a manager is considered a regular user. What regular users can see and do depends on Workspace Settings. Same thing goes with project managers. Under the billable hours, we can choose who can see hourly rates and amounts and who can see and change billable status of time entries and expenses. You can also define who can create projects and clients, who can create tasks on their projects, and who can create new tags. Besides defining who can do what, we can also define if regular users can see other people's time entries, access the team dashboard, and see their project statuses, including the estimates. You can also hide certain pages from the sidebar so regular users can't access them. Now, mistakes happen all the time, so sometimes we need to edit time entries. Here you can choose if the admin or both admin and team managers can add or edit time entries for others. Here, you can add specific team members who can manage invoices. You can lock time and expenses to prevent regular users from editing their past time or adding new entries to past dates. You can choose who can create assignments, and finally, force the timer to prevent users from adding time manually and editing time of their existing entries. Clockify has time-off policies allowing you to efficiently manage leave balances and track holidays within your company. First of all, let's activate time off in Workspace Settings. A new card will appear in your sidebar, so let's click on it. If we click on this cogwheel here, it'll drop down two managing options, one for holidays and one for policies. Let's set up a vacation policy together by first defining some aspects of the policy. We'll give it a name, set who has access to the vacation, whether someone needs to approve it, and how many days or hours it'll automatically accrue in a year or month. Employees can also have a negative balance, which means your employees can request time off even if they don't have any in their balance, as well as the option to take half a day off. Now let's add a holiday. For this, you'll need to input the name, select who it applies to, select the date range, and choose if this specific holiday occurs annually during the same date range. In Clockify, you can tie your projects to clients, so when working on a specific task, you can attach your work to your client's name, but you can also leave them out if the project is internal. Adding a client is as simple as adding a team member. All you need to do is type your client's name here and click Add. Now, each client has a name, but you can also add their contact information, an invoicing address, and other details you may need to note. In Clockify, each project has a name, a client, and a color assigned to it to visually separate projects. To create a project, you click Create New Project and input all the relevant information. Once that's done, you can dive into the nitty-gritty if needed. You can break each project into tasks. With each task, you can note who is assigned to the task, if the task is billable, what's the hourly rate for that project, and the cost rate. So let's head to the Workspace Settings. Scroll down and find Task Rates. Now we can add hourly rates, and with this option, we can enable billable and non-billable tasks. Back to our project. Here we can add a task, then choose if this specific task is billable or non-billable, and set the billable and cost rate. The far left tab here will direct you to the project settings. Here you can edit the project's name, client, and color, choose if all new entries on this project will be initially set as billable, and set the project billable and cost rate. This rate will override the Workspace billable and cost rate, as it's higher in the hierarchy of rates. To keep track of the progress for each task or a project as a whole, you can set project estimates. When setting the project estimate, you can choose between having no estimate, a time estimate, and a budget. Estimates let you see if you charge enough for projects. Plus, estimates can help you get better at estimating future projects. If you choose to set a time estimate, you can choose between inputting manually for the entire project or task-based, where you can set an estimate for each planned task. Once you have your estimate set, you can track relevant progress in the Status tab on the project page. If you need to track more data, you can define your own custom fields in Workspace Settings. The process of creation is the same as for user custom fields. For example, you can create a field for project ID and expenses. It will be available in the time tracker and timesheet for users to enter. Or even better, you can go to a project directly and define the project ID in the project settings, and all entries on that project will inherit the value. Then, you can see the custom fields in reports, filter by them, and export to Excel to create advanced pivot tables. But suppose you continuously work on similar projects. In this case, I suggest you save projects as templates. This saves you time creating tasks, estimates, assigned teams, billable rates, or other custom fields. You can set a template by clicking on the 3 dots next to the desired project and choosing Set Template. Then, when creating a new project, input the name and client and choose your template here. To keep better track of your project estimates, you can set up alerts and get an email notification when a project has reached a certain percentage of its estimated time. To set up project alerts, go to the Workspace Settings, switch to the Alerts tab, choose if you'd like alerts to be sent for projects or tasks, at what percentage of the estimated time, and to whom. Then just add the alert. To activate scheduling, head on to the Workspace Settings. Scroll down to the Scheduling section and activate. You also have the option to choose if regular users can see everyone's assignments. Now, let's go to the Schedule page. Here you'll see the Projects and Team tabs. They both show your team's assignments, just from a different angle. For example, the Projects tab shows you all the projects you have scheduled in this period, their milestones, and total assigned hours. Here you can add a project to the schedule, and you can also add a project milestone by clicking on a date and adding the milestone's name. When expanding the project, you can add a member to the schedule. Once added, don't forget to publish the schedule so that your users are updated with their assignments. When you switch to the Team tab, you'll see the same data, only broken down by team members and their capacity. You will be able to see if your employees have free time or are overscheduled. As you've probably figured out, everything in Clockify revolves around time entries. There are many ways to track time, and some ways of creating time entries are using the time tracker, adding time in the calendar, entering your work hours in the timesheet, and clocking in on a kiosk. When you track time using the time tracker, you have the option to add a description, the project it's related to, any custom fields you may have activated, as well as tags, which are like keywords. To create a tag, head over to the sidebar and find the Tags card. Here, we'll just type the name and add. Now our tag is ready to be used. They work across projects, so they are a great way to filter reports or group time entries. Tags can also be created on the fly in the time tracker. We already mentioned the possibility to force the timer, but we can also choose which fields are mandatory when saving a time entry in the Workspace settings. If you already use Google Calendar or Outlook to plan your days, you can connect them to your Clockify calendar by heading to it through the sidebar, clicking on the cogwheel, and selecting which one you'd like to connect. Once connected, you can just start tracking time on that activity or copy the activity directly. Tracking expenses is possible when activated in Workspace Settings. As usual, a new card will appear in the sidebar. When you click on the cogwheel, you will see different categories that Clockify provides you with. You can edit each by clicking on the 3 dots and choosing Edit. We can create new categories here, give them a name, and decide if the category doesn't have a unit price, which means that when tracking expenses, users input the exact amount spent, or with a unit price, where you specify the price per unit of your choice. Then when tracking, users input the number of units, so Clockify calculates the final amount. If you wish to use timesheets, you'll need to enable it in Workspace Settings. If this is the only method you wish to be used, then you can hide the tracker altogether. Lower down, you can activate Timesheet and Expenses Approval, which allows your team to submit their timesheets and expenses for review, which you can approve or reject. Here you need to select the approval period. If you need multiple employees to track time at one location, the simplest way is to use a kiosk. To activate your kiosk, go to Workspace Settings and toggle this switch. You can also enable tracking breaks. Now, you can set up your kiosk here Give it a name, choose who's assigned to it, which project it relates to, as well as the break project, how long before the kiosk logs out, and finally, if a PIN code is needed to access the kiosk. You can add limited users on the team page if you want them to use the kiosk exclusively and not have access to Clockify's apps. To enable invoicing, let's go back to Workspace Settings. Once enabled, you can input your company's address, which will automatically populate the Bill From section on all your invoices. So, let's see how you can personalize your invoices. Go to Invoices and click on the cogwheel. First, you can choose what item types are available. By default, we offer service and product, but you can add your own by clicking Edit, then Add Type. Next, you can add a tax, and a second one too if applicable. You can add a default subject and notes, and add more Bill From addresses if necessary. Clockify has the option to send invoices directly, and here in the Emails tab, you can customize your default email template. Using the syntax listed here will populate your email with actual values from the invoice when you send it. Lastly, the Translation tab allows you to translate every label on a Clockify invoice. Your translation will show up on the printed and PDF versions of all your invoices. If you or your teammate belong to more than one workspace, you'll need to be careful which is the active workspace. Your current active workspace appears here. When you create a time entry or a project, it will appear only in that workspace. So, if you switch to another workspace here, you'll notice that it has completely different time entries, users, and projects. If your teammates don't need multiple workspaces, they can delete the one they're not using by clicking Manage and then clicking the Leave icon. Having multiple workspaces can be useful in case you want to keep all the data separate, but keep in mind that you won't be able to run one report for multiple workspaces. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this webinar and that it helped you set up your Clockify workspace. To learn more, be sure to check out our other videos or consult our blog where we have more resources for you to check out.